Hey guys, so are you a system administrator that wants to understand the difference between permission sets, profiles, and roles? Maybe you're like, why are there three of them? Maybe you're like, oh, best practices, I should be using all of them. Well, if you want to understand not only what they are, but how they apply to you and your business, and probably most importantly, how to pick the right one for the situation that you're in, stick around. You're not going to want to miss this. Hey there, welcome to Techo Talks, where we tackle Salesforce problems in 15 minutes or less, which means we kind of got to get started. I'm your host, Alyssa, so let's get it going. We're going to be tackling the giant conundrum of profiles versus permission sets versus roles. Not only what they are, but how they would be applied in pretty specific situations, because there would be a reason why you would choose a permission set over a profile adjustment. But it's not all just intuitive, and also when you look up what best practices are, that doesn't always apply to your situation. So let's go ahead and tackle these one by one. And also, we're going to hop into Salesforce and look at where you not only edit, but create and adjust these specific things. So let's dive right in. All right, guys. So we are in setup of one of my playgrounds. So no sensitive client data here. But if you don't know how to get here, what you're going to do is you're going to go to this cog up here. When you click down, go to setup. If you don't have access to setup, then that means that you're either not a system administrator or you don't have the permissions to do so. So this really is a task for Salesforce system administrators. So basically, what we first have to do is we have to find profiles. Now, one of the fastest ways would be to type or start even typing profiles, and it'll pop right up. Also, it's like one of the first things on the list, so it's pretty easy to find. But the reason we are starting with profiles is because if we were going to rank profiles, permission sets, and roles, that is the order in which I would put them of importance and also put them in implementation, right? So if we are going to maybe develop some sort of analogy, let's say that your profile is a lot more along like your job title, and your job title along with what you have, literally permission to do and permission to edit, permission to work on, permission to different apps. That's what your profile is going to outline and identify for you. Profiles is the bare basics of how you identify the difference between like a marketing user and a sales user, and giving sales users the ability to edit opportunities versus giving a marketing user perhaps just view privileges, but maybe not edit privileges because they're not actually working on opportunities. So what Salesforce can and can't do for you based on like these security settings you can do is that it's powerful in that you can literally say, okay, this person's allowed to do this thing and this person is not. So you can get pretty darn specific. But a profile is going to be for a group of people, right? So a group of your users that either do or do not need permissions to do fill in the blank. So the very basic first step, if you have a brand new org, is going to be to come down to, where is the standard user? Oh, we have lots of permission sets in here. Okay, so this standard user one is the Salesforce best practice of what you would clone, and then you would create your own permission set just for your standard user, just for your everyday user that just needs to add and edit contacts, needs to be able to, share things, create tasks. This person might be able to create reports and dashboards. That's going to totally be a per situation basis. But the easiest way to do this is, instead of assigning people to the standard user, that the default one, clone it and then go through the permissions so that you can decide, okay, this person should be able to do this and shouldn't be able to do that. Now, what you can do is you can clone the standard user and create different profiles per department or division. Or you could also just create a standard user profile for general permissions that you want all users to have. And then what you would do is when we get here down to the second story, which is permission sets. So as I said, profiles is essentially your job title and your general security settings. But let's say that you have a whole bunch of users. They all have kind of the same profile permissions. Things are operating as expected, as desired. But you have one person who you're like, I really need this person specifically and only to be able to do that. So now that brings us to permission sets. How you find permission sets is the same way you find profiles. Just going to go really slow. There we go. So permission sets. So as I said, a profile is more like your job title and general security slash abilities slash permissions, right? So as I said, this is what you would use if, say, for instance, you have a person who like reports and dashboards. There are some companies that get really stingy and really secure with who's able to create reports and dashboards. Now, this might be you. This might not be you. I don't know. Sometimes if you let everybody go hog wild, that ends up being a mess. So, but giving people the ability to report on what they do also enables them to be able to do their jobs better. So understanding reports and dashboards is a little bit of a learning curve, but I believe anybody's capable of doing it. So this is, though, we're jumping from profiles to permission sets and the decision process that you would go through as to why you would choose one or the other. So if you are creating a job title, right? And this is all virtual in the cloud, right? Like usually this would be like in a store. You have like your sales manager and you have your clerk and your like, so a grocery store, you have the people who bag the items. You have the person who is the cashier. You have the person who's nowadays, you have the person who's running all the self-checkout areas. So you have all these different jobs which would have all these different profiles. But say you need the bag person to be able to also make change, right? So that doesn't really happen, but I'm trying to use this analogy. So you have somebody in a different job title or somebody that's doing something specific, but they also need to be able to do this one extra thing. So you would have to be able to grant them extra permissions to be able to do that extra thing. So that is when you choose permission sets. Now, when you go and create a permission set, it looks exactly like the way you create a profile because you don't have to select everything that they already can do. Permission sets are pretty simply for that one extra thing they have to be able to do. Now, as you can see here in terms of how they're organized, like MFA, Sales Cloud User, how you would organize them would be by what they're able to do. So for instance, like I was saying about being able to make change, right? Or reports and dashboards. What's another? Oh, so say you have a manager, right? So you have a manager who's not a system administrator, but they also need to be able to manage users so that when they get a new hire, they can add the users in themselves. Granted, that's usually a system admin task, but let's be real. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, and at a certain point when your org gets big enough, it's going to be your responsibility to delegate because you're not going to be able to do everything. So, basically what I'm saying is a permission set, when you go in and create a new one, it's going to look a lot like a profile and it's going to look and behave like a profile, except they are individual, right? So say you had an extra permission set for reports and dashboards. You could assign that to this person over here and that person over there and this one person over here. and they could be in all different departments. So what I'm saying is this gives you the freedom to give extra permissions to that one person or that group of people that need to be able to do extra stuff. So after you have your profiles and your extra permissions all mapped out, at this point, this is probably where you're like, okay, but I need we're putting approval processes in, we're putting in hierarchy, we are putting in sharing permissions and privileges along those lines, and permission sets aren't going to cut it. And that's when we land on roles. So let's dive into roles and hopefully find a simple way to explain what roles are. Same as profiles and permission sets, anything you type into the quick find box here, or if you have no idea where you're looking for something, use the search and setup. It's nice. Okay, of course it won't. There we go. Roles. Of course it won't load. So this actually is a perfect diagram example. So here is the deal. What a role does, aside from profiles and permission sets, is it enables you to be able to create a three-dimensional structure within your org. So when you have say you have 10 people in your organization, you would be able to do everything you need to do with simply profiles and permission sets. At a certain point, roles becomes overkill for that type of situation. Versus when you have an org with 50 people in it, all of a sudden you're going to have people who need to manage other people who need to approve other people. You're going to be able to create a little bit more of like this tree structure with groups so that you can grant like bulk permissions. I mean, really what roles does is it gives you the ability to have approvers on approval processes, and if whether that's enabling discounts, whether that is approval for kind of anything. You can create an approval process for anything. It would be totally feasible to have like a manager approval to be like, yep, that's right. Yep, let's work on that. That is one of the reasons you would have a role, because the role gives you not only like the extra permissions you would need to be a manager, but it gives you control over the people who are lower than you in the hierarchy. So I could be talking to you who is not necessarily the CEO. You could be like the district manager, or you could be, the general manager or something like that. So what I'm saying is that by creating a hierarchical structure within your organization, which you probably already have mapped out on paper, what this does is it just creates a virtual version of it. What you're doing though, essentially, is you are creating layers, being that this layer cannot reach this layer without explicit approval, and this layer cannot reach this layer without explicit approval, but this layer up here can influence any of the layers below it. And same when you go down the tiers, any layers below it, any layers below it. So that 3D structure is really, if you have a lot of people in your org, it is going to help you manage everybody and create structure within your sharing settings, within your security, within a lot of different things. So in a nutshell, that was profiles, permission sets, and roles. And also along the way, we went why you would choose each one, right? So if you're creating like a job title, if you're creating like a job setup, then you're going to go with a profile. If you need somebody to be able to do like one extra thing, two extra things, access to an app, permission. If you need to create a 3D hierarchy in your org, being that somebody needs to be in charge of somebody else, that's when you're going to need roles. So we did not actually go through creating any of these things. We just went through why you would use any of them. And the first step really is not going to be to build it. It's going to be to think about it and then you build it. So I hope this has made a lot of sense, and I hope that you guys now have a totally brand new way of thinking about these things. So I hope you found this video on profiles versus permission sets versus roles really helpful. And if you did like this video, please leave a comment with any questions. I'm happy to answer anything that, maybe pertains to a specific situation you're facing. I'm happy to answer any of those questions in the comments. But don't forget to like and subscribe, and then turn on notifications, because then you'll get notified every single time this channel posts a new video, because I plan on posting many videos just like this, because if you're a Salesforce system administrator, there's a very real chance that you are undervalued in your company. There's a very real chance that nobody understands what you have to do on a daily basis just to keep the boat afloat. Like you're the captain of the ship, and they don't even know that sometimes you're being given instructions that actually make no sense. And I'm a certified Salesforce administrator, but also a consultant. So I actually work with clients just like you every single day, helping you navigate this crazy Salesforce world where when you type things into Google search about Salesforce, oh my God, 20,000 things come up. So I'm hoping that through these videos, I can make everything just a little bit simpler and more straightforward. So if you like this content, if you like if you smell what I'm farting, we're super professional here too. Then stick around, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.